I'm Chris Oppenheim. People call me Church. I'm the owner of Interstate Inc. in Los Angeles, California. We cater almost exclusively to recovering addicts, and we have a program in place to help artists with addiction issues get their lives and careers back on track. We're trying to raise awareness, educate others, and reduce the negative stigmas associated with addiction. We want everyone to know there is hope, we do recover, and most importantly, even broken crayons still color. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Broken Crayon Show here at Interstate Inc. Today, I have a good friend of mine. This is Bill. Bill was actually on the show Intervention and made his way out to sunny Southern California from Kensington, Philadelphia.
Yeah.
The armpit of the United States. Bill, hi.
Hi. It's always awkward.
Huh?
It's always awkward. It's always awkward in the beginning.
What is?
Huh?
What
Looking
is?
at your face.
So, what was it like?
What was it like?
Hey, yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself, man. Like, tell everybody where you came from and how you got here, and you know,
All right.
the story of Bill.
It all started on a cold November night. No, but you know, like I said, I'm from Kensington. It's a section of Philadelphia, like in North Philadelphia. I was born down there, raised down there, everything. You know, like for me, it took a long time for me to really like comprehend the chaos and insanity that I come from and that I was raised in. You know, because like for me, it was normal growing up. You know, it was normal for like your dad to beat you up. It was normal for like walking out the front door and seeing people smoke crack and chew heroin. Like all that stuff was like normal. You know, so like, but growing up there, as bad as it was, you had this like camaraderie of being from that neighborhood.
That sounds like Pigtown in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I've said that before. It sounds like Southwest Baltimore.
Yeah, you know, and it is, and you build up this camaraderie of people, and it's like, you know, it's like a family, you know, where we all took care of each other, and it even into my using days, it went up into my using days too, because even being out there using together, you know, it's like that trauma bonding thing, you know, and the stuff that we understand that it seems like other people don't get, but yeah, like coming up there, it was just, you know, the abnormal was normal, you know, and growing up in my household, you know, I have 3 sisters and a brother, and, you know, we all had same mom and same dad. And growing up in our neighborhood, which was a really like poor neighborhood, like we were the poor family, you know, and, you know, and inside our household, it was like, you know, how it looked like on a daily basis would be like if my dad wasn't home by about 6 o'clock at night, like me and my brother just mentally got ourselves prepared for the beatings that we were going to get, because he would come home and, you know, when he'd run out of money, he would want more money. So he would beat up us kids until my mom would hand over more money.
Drink?
Oh yeah, my dad drank. Yeah, my dad drank. He did everything, you know. But like, even for as fucked up as he was, like, you know, we didn't have, you know, not nice things, but, you know, we always had a roof over our head. We always had food in our stomachs for the most part, you know, and we had sneakers to put on and clothes to wear, you know, and like, I think to him, as long as he was like providing those things, like it was okay for all the other shit that he did, you know. And growing up, like I said, like my mom had my brother at a real young age, and in 7 years she had 5 kids. And for her, like, she dropped out of high school, and when we were younger, you know, she would do things like she made sure like all of us kids like knew how to read at a young age. She really like instilled education and learning into our lives. You know, because like when we were younger, she went back and got her GED, and then she started going to college and stuff. And she sacrificed a lot, you know, in order for her to prosper later on in life, you know. You know, so like growing up in my neighborhood, so I have, you know, these guys I grew up with and hung around, and it was like, who do you look up to? You know, like, so for me, it was like I would look up to the guys that I felt that were going to show like safety, because I always had that, my impending doom was like fear of like not being safe. So, like, I'd start mimicking these guys that I seen, you know, like committing crimes, doing crazy shit, drinking, using, all that stuff. You know, and then, and my brother's 5 years older than me. And, like, after high school, he went in the military. So, like, and my dad was how he was. So, like, I never really had that guidance of, like, how to do things. And as much as, like, my brother wanted to, like, he couldn't. Like, he was stationed over in Germany for a long time. So for me, like, it was like just hanging out in the streets, which started, you know, using and getting incarcerated. You know, I spent the first time
what that shit really kicked off.
So, like, the using for me started, and I remember the first time I actually drank and got drunk, I was young. I was probably about 7, 8 years old. And my family was around. My grandfather, my dad's dad, he was dying at the time. And I just remember drinking, and that night, like, my dad didn't act crazy. So I think for me, it instilled in me at a young age, like, if I'm loaded, like, things are going to be okay. You know, and then, so then what happened was, like, with the getting loaded, like, you know, I started smoking weed at a young age, all that stuff. And, like, I would cut school, and me and my friends, we'd hang out, and, you know, when we'd cut school, like, you know, we'd do stuff like graffiti on walls. That was a big thing for us, stealing cars and all that stuff. You know, and I wound up getting locked up at a young age, and it followed me for a long time. You know, and, you know, and really, like, it's like one of those things, like, to where, like, getting locked up, like, it didn't, like, when you're younger, you know, I remember before the first time I got locked up, it was like that fear of, like, going to jail because you hear the stories. But then once you do it, and you're like, oh, it's not that bad.
Right. Not going to get on it.
Yeah. And what's
kind of sickening what we can get used to.
Yeah. And it's even like with using, because, like, growing up and being a young kid and walking out of my front door, and there's people on the corner smoking crack, there's people shooting heroin, and all this, and you go out and you see all this violence. And I remember, like, coming up before I started using, like, thinking, like, I was scared to use because I thought if I used, I would end up like those people. And then what happened, like, I remember smoking weed the first time, and, like, all I did was fucking, this was back in the day when McDonald's had the 2-for-2 Big Macs, and all I did was eat a bunch of Big Macs and go to sleep. It was fucking great. I loved it. I was like, shit, I get stoned and I fucking eat McDonald's. You know, and like having those times where it's like,
life.
Yeah. And it's like having those times where, like, nothing else mattered anymore. Like, I wasn't worried about my dad coming home and fucking me up. I wasn't worried about, like, you know, feeling like, you know, people don't love me or care about me. Like, I didn't care about any of that, because then, like, I finally found that comfort, you know, and for me, like, addiction became a real progressive thing, and it progressed really fast for me. You know, later on, like with using, you know, I remember, like, back in the day, it was like, especially because, like, I came up in the Oxy era, where Oxycontins, like real Oxycontins, you know, and I remember at that time, like, a lot of people around my neighborhood were dying off of overdosing from Oxycontin. And having that fear of, like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like I don't know what's going to happen. And that was before people understood, like, once you can't afford Oxy, you start shooting heroin. That was before people even knew that. So, like, it wasn't a fear of, like, doing heroin. For me, it was a fear of, like, fuck, I might die. And then I remember, like, snorting an OC20, and I threw up all over the place. And it was the greatest feeling I ever had in my life. Like, I fucking loved it. I loved it. And right there, like, that's where, you know, when they talk about that.
How old were you when you did that?
I did Oxys for the first time. I was
that
probably
fucking puke and
probably
fucking
17.
Never felt so. Huh?
I was probably 17 when I did that. Because, like, I
remember that. I had the exact same experience. I snorted heroin. Mm-hmm. Snorted it like 3 times before I shot it. But it was like, I think it was like 15. And I was throwing up all fucking day. But at the same time, never felt better, I guess. Yeah. Which is, I don't even like using that word anymore.
It's weird. No, but it is. It's one of those things, and then it's like, oh, this is fucking great. Like when people, if they get it, they're fortunate enough to be able to go around the rooms, like you start hearing like that I have arrived moment, and yeah, man, and opiates just really like made me feel like I arrived, and because like, and it's like it's kind of hard, like I really don't talk about it a lot, but like the chaos outside of like in the neighborhood, like that, like getting loaded, like really like blocked off the chaos. At a young age, seeing like on the streets, seeing people get stabbed, get shot, seeing people get almost beat to death, like that shit became normal. Like it didn't faze me.
Okay.
And being in and out of jail, and I think when things really like turned to where like I was full on like, all right, I want to be a junkie, and I'm going to become a junkie, and I'm going to like die a junkie, was when I was like 24. My dad just went through this thing where he got like, he basically almost got beat to death, and and he went on disability, and he had this little apartment. He ran through all this money, and I would go stay at his apartment, and I was, I'd like to say I was selling coke at the time, but really like I was getting people to give me coke, and I would just never pay them back and say I was selling it. But that's when I started shooting it, and that was another like aha moment, like that first time I shot cocaine. And it was like, wow.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can relate to that one. That was my constant throughout. No matter what drugs I was doing, there was cocaine involved.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Drink, you do coke. You got some dope, you gotta have some coke. Like that's the one really grabbed hold of me too.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so I remember being in his apartment, and I just got an ounce of coke fronted to me from some dude. I don't even know who he was. I don't even remember him. And I left the coke in my dad's apartment, and me and one of my homies, we go out, and we're shooting dope down in Kensington, and like my dad had an apartment up in a section called Wissanomi, and so I go back to my dad's apartment, and me and my homie, we got my dad a hooker. You know what I mean? He was, it was like he was at the end of his rope. You know what I mean? Like he had on stages of Alzheimer's or dementia, and he was just like out of it. So I was like, the least I can do is get him laid another time. And I walked back in the house, and my dad's sitting there with two of my friends' dads, and they're standing at his kitchen table, and they're snorting the coke.
Shit you were supposed to be selling.
Yeah. So I'm like, and so I remember grabbing that coke and going into his bathroom, and I was in his bathroom for like 3 days, and on like the third day, it was early in the morning, and bro, all my veins were shot out. I could not hit. I was on like my last little bit of coke, and I was trying to hit a vein, and I'm saying like this bathroom looked like there was a bloodbath in there, blood everywhere. I have dried up blood from the past 3 days all over my body. And my dad finally gets into the bathroom, and my dad was an emotional person, and my dad just started busting down crying. And he was like, "What did I do?" And yeah, so I wound up leaving it, and I went down to South Carolina for a little bit to try and like straighten myself out. And then
same shit down there.
Yeah, definitely same shit. Definitely never changes. That whole like people say that geographical that it don't work. It definitely don't work.
No, I did the same thing when I went down to Florida from Baltimore.
I understand.
Wherever I go, I take me with me.
Yeah, I finally understood that meaning when I was sitting in a hole in jail. And I was in there at that time. I was in there for probably about 8 or 9 months in the hole, and I'm still getting loaded.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter.
Like people
don't get it.
I will find it anyway.
Yeah.
And
like my mother, she thought jail was the best thing for me. Without getting into details, it was just like
right?
I'm gonna get high there too.
Yeah, definitely. Probably a little bit easier too. You know, but yeah, I'll get into the jail stuff. Yeah. You know, jail's definitely a part of like a lot of shit that I did. And but yeah, so it was like around Thanksgiving, and my dad was going to his sister's house for Thanksgiving, and his phone got fucked up somehow. And when he came back to his apartment, I couldn't get a hold of him, and you know, and they found him. He wound up dying, and he was there. He was dead for about 4 or 5 days before we found him. You know, and it was like, and I remember just getting like real angry because like we had this big breakthrough emotional moment, and now the motherfucker's dead. You know, and I'm like, fuck. You know what I mean? And I think that was that moment where I was just like, fuck it. Because people always say I look like my dad. I was like my dad. So I was like, all right, you know, I'm going to be like him. And I gave no fucks from that point on. You know, and I just ran the streets. And like when I say ran the streets, not like in a gangster fucking cool way. I'm saying I ran the streets like I stayed homeless.
You got a junkie.
Yeah, I shot drugs in every section of my body, even all the ones that people think that are crazy.
I went in my forehead. Trust me, again.
Yeah. I've been in my forehead a couple times.
I don't have any functioning surface veins. The only way I can even have a doctor draw blood is, I think it's called a blood gas, like a respiratory therapist has to do it.
Yeah,
like the ultrasound didn't work. None of that shit.
I would say you're worse than me because they can do it with ultrasound.
No, they can't fucking.
No, but that's why we're twins, bro.
Yeah, right. We can relate.
Yeah, like you know, I remember that.
No, we hit it off as soon as I met you.
Yeah. Well, I remember that 3 days in the bathroom shooting coke, and I couldn't hit anything. So then that's when, you know, I heard somebody say it before, and I got the bright idea. I got a vein in my dick. I can hit that shit. You know?
Yeah, that's not funny.
No. and when you miss a little bit with coke in your dick, not a good time.
Yeah, you're missing your neck and numb your eardrum.
Yeah.
Couldn't hear for like 2 hours.
Or when you're missing your forehead and you think your eye's about to pop out. You know?
Good times, bro.
And this is the insanity of it, because like if a normal person watches this, they're going to be like, these dudes are fucking out of their mind. Which we are, but like we're laughing about it because it's like, you know,
if it falls under the category of if I didn't laugh, I'd cry. Yeah. Because it is sick, but that's our fucking past. Regardless of what anybody thinks about it, that's how we lived.
Definitely, you know, and for a long time it was like that guilt and shame of living like that, you know, and that's why I think this works so well, is because like that guilt and shame is relieved, you know.
How did you end up on intervention? Like,
all right, so
who set that shit up? Like,
so what had happened was no, really what happened. So here, let me back up. So I went to prison. I was in prison for a few years, and I went to prison for some crazy shit. I fucking abused my probation officer.
Abused?
Yeah. So that happened. You know,
wait a minute. You can't just leave it at that.
They were coming to lock me up, and I hit him, and he got hurt, and they didn't like that.
Straight up whooped his ass.
Yeah. So
abused.
So you know, they were going to send me to prison for that, and then you know,
what was the charge?
It became an aggravated assault. At first, it was like trying to start out with like an attempted murder thing. They dropped down to an aggravated assault.
You hit him pretty fucking hard.
Yeah, and you know, and the thing is like, and later on, you're gonna like this, like one of those fucking, when they talk about miracles of recovery, I'll tell you in a minute. It's crazy. So that happened, and during that time when I was in jail, I was selling drugs in jail. That was my get down. Was like, you know, because no matter where I'm at, like I never wanted to stop getting loaded. So even in jail, like I used to love getting locked up. And in Philly, we go to this jail, it's called CFCF, and you do this quarantine thing. And I used to love that, being in quarantine, because I knew for the next 7 to 10 days, I'm going to totally detox off of everything. So by the time I hit the block and I do a Suboxone, I'm going to be high as shit. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the insanity of it, you know? And, yeah, so I wound up going to prison for a little bit, and I get out of prison.
How long is a little bit?
A few years, you know, That time it was, if you add it all together, it was about 7 years going in and out, like getting paroled, going back in on violations.
Yeah, I'm up to about 5 total.
Yeah. And so when I got out, after doing a nice little bid, I get out and I remember I'm walking, I see this girl walking in front of me, and she's got a really big butt, real long curly hair, and and she had on her back, she had the shirt was pulled up a little bit, and there was 245s tattooed on her lower back. And
love at first sight.
Yeah, I fell in love. And here, come to find out, we were both on state parole. We were both getting ready to go on a run from state parole.
Oh, you had a lot in common.
A lot.
Aww.
And but the crazy thing is, like, it really, like, with me and her, it turned into one of those things where it was love at first sight. And this commenced on a 3-year run where me and her became fucking, like, she was my other half. Like, me and that girl, we were homeless together, we used together, we tried to get clean together, we did get clean together at a point. She was, like, up until now, she was the love of my life. And so it was the time me and her, we both get locked up. I wound up getting out 3 months later, and she was sitting. And so I'm getting loaded as soon as I get out. And so what happened, I was out there getting loaded, and these people contact me and they say, hey, we're doing this documentary about the opiate epidemic in Philadelphia and specifically in Kensington. And, I heard a lot about you, all that. And at the time I was back on a run from parole. So when they asked me, like, my initial, like, response was like, go fuck yourself. Like, I was not about to put myself on camera when, I got fucking everybody looking for me. And she just got out of jail, and we're on this corner. It's a corner, it's known in Kensington. It was F and Allegheny. And I shot her. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and I hit her with a quarter bag of dope in her neck. A quarter of a nick bag of dope in her neck. And she goes out. And I had Narcan, and I was hitting her with Narcan. She wasn't coming to. And that was like the first time in a long time, like, I shot up a prayer to God to do something that was for somebody else and not for myself. And I was like, God, please, like, just help me get her out of this. And, on like the 3rd or 4th Narcan I sprayed up her nose, she came out of it. And the next morning I called them people. I'm like, look, man, I'm down. Cause like, I'm not slow. I knew what it was, and plus, like, everybody in the neighborhood talks, and they knew they were looking for people to do it. So, like, I told them, like, yeah, I'll do it. She's got to be a part of it. And that's the only way that I would do it.
Get you both into rehab.
Yeah. And to be honest, like, in the beginning, it wasn't about me. Like, I was like, all right, I'll go away somewhere, get a nice little 90-day break. And wherever they send me, I'll see how their dope is there. I'll prove that Philly has the best heroin in the country. And that was the goal, And, so they started filming us. And like I said, I was on a run at that time. And while they were filming me, one day after they were done following me around with the cameras, fucking, I do a shot and I nod out. And I wake up to 2 bike cops kicking me. And this is the kicker, right? So it was 2 bike cops, which was bad in itself, but they were both rookie bike cops. And the female officer put me in pink handcuffs. It was really embarrassing. And, so.
They got pink handcuffs?
Yeah, she definitely had a pair of pink handcuffs. That's I didn't know whether, like, to be angry or turned on at the moment. But, so they locked me up, and
a little bit of both.
And
you can have both at the same time.
Yeah, that's for a whole different type of show. But so at the time, they take me in, and like in the beginning, like, my judge, because like in Philadelphia, how the judicial system goes is that you get these things called back judges. So whatever judge sentenced you, they become the judge that always, and more than likely take your cases. You can do a 701 and put your back cases in front. Put your front cases in front of your back judge, so you have everything in one. And I always dealt with this one judge, and he was like, yeah, I'm gonna send you. You want to send me to prison back upstate? And the insanity of it is like I get back to the jail from court, and the girl I was with, my mom, come up to visit me. I'm mad at her because she was supposed to smuggle me in some Suboxone and she didn't. So I'm pissed off at her. And I'm mad because like I'm like, all right, like get me the fuck out of the county and send me upstate. And so I'm like 2 days later, he pulled me back down court, and my lawyer pulls me into, you know, where the holding tanks are behind the courtrooms, and he goes, listen, like, you know, we got people to advocate it for you, like, look, we're gonna get you out. He was like, but you're gonna have to go to treatment. And I was like, okay. Like, I've never been offered that before.
Is that the because of the show?
Yeah, it was definitely because of the show. And so they let me out that night, and that girl, my mom, picked me up. We go to a hotel room, me and her, and we commenced to getting loaded that night. And the next morning, we didn't have no dope or anything, so I'm like, fuck. But I have to go to court in the morning to go in front of my judge, you know, for him to, like, do the official sentencing. And the only thing that was on my mind is like, all right, I got some money still sitting at the jail that I can pick up. Like, I want to pick that money up and I want to go get loaded. Like, that's all I was focused on. So as I'm walking out of the courtroom, my mom was there. You know, I remember walking down and my mom's like, Bill, like, if I can't sit and wait for you for another 10 years. Like, the reality of it is, like, more than likely, like, I won't be alive if you go away again.
Take the rehab.
You know what I mean?
And like, go to treatment.
And that was like the first time it hit me, because like this woman, like, she's come and visited me in prison, in jail. She's always stuck by my side.
My mother never visited me.
And like, you know, and that was one of them things like where it hit me. And so when I walk out, and we're in Philly, we don't call it downtown, we call it Center City. So we're down Center City around at like 15th and Market. And I'm sitting there and I'm talking, and my only focus is like, I got to hurry up and get on the fucking L because I need to get high. And these people come walk around the corner, and I see my sister and my niece come walk with them, and all these cameras. And I'm like, oh, fuck no. Nope. Like, I need to get loaded.
You know what? I saw it.
Yeah.
I know exactly the scene you're talking about in the show. You were like,
not doing
this ain't fucking happening.
But what was crazy that day when that happened, so like my niece was the one that ran up and like grabbed me and was like, Uncle Bill, can you just chill and listen for a minute? You know, and they played it smart because she was probably the only person I would have listened to at that time, you know? And, you know, I stopped and they all come on us, and me and, you know, my ex were standing there, and I was like, is she going to a place? They were like, yeah. I was like, and we just looked at each other. We're like, all right, come on, let's do this. You know, so we hop on a plane. We're both dope sick, flying on the plane. She's laying on top of me, sweating. Like, we're on this like fancy American Airlines plane, and we're both dope sick coming out of Kensington, flying to LA. I'm laughing because like just thinking back, like how crazy it was. And you know, and that's the thing, like the whole deal with that show is like, you know, they film you, and then, you know, they send you off to treatment, and they send me to a place out here in LA. And, you know, and if you watch that show, and usually you see couples that are on that show, they usually send the couples to different states. Yeah. Like with me and her, they sent us to treatment centers that were literally 5 miles away from each other. You know, and
weird.
Yeah, and it was, and you know, I remember being at treatment center, and I'm like, yeah, LA, I heard about Skid Row. Like, you know, I want to see what the dope's like out here. Mexico's like right down the street. They should have some good shit out here. And this is like my thought process while I'm in treatment. And
in the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning, in the very beginning. And the thing that I like that I never experienced before is like at that treatment center, and you know what a lot of treatment centers in LA do is like they take you to outside meetings. You know, so I would go to these outside meetings, and I would hear shit that like it kind of like clicked for me a little bit, you know. And I had this guy that was working at the treatment center that in the beginning, like, I didn't like him, you know, and he's like this big dude all tatted up, like got this crazy story. And I'm like, oh, bro,
Why didn't you like him? Was he honest with you?
Very honest, very honest. But like, see, so I suffer from extreme ego, you know? So like my whole thought was like me coming in there, like, hey, I'm coming in here from a TV show and fucking, you know, you should want to get to know who I am. I shouldn't want to seek you out.
I'm glad you said that, because we had talked about it numerous times about what that show, being on the show, did to you. Because it kind of like, you know, kind of put you in a position where everybody knew who you were. And you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, you know,
because it kind of fucked you up in a way.
Yeah,
like,
no,
obviously helped, but you know.
Most definitely. See, and it does, and it goes into like, so in Philadelphia, how the treatment system is out there, and I'm not talking about private treatment, because there's really not private treatment out there. There's some of them, but it's not like in LA
it's mostly
where
state shit.
Yeah, you know, and it's state,
like,
county funded place.
Baltimore.
Yeah, you know, and so like, and in Philly, like your options are, you know, either you get on methadone or Suboxone, you go to jail, or you fucking somehow miraculously get clean by going to meetings. You know, and not saying it's not able to be done. Like, people can get clean by going to meetings out there, but you know, it's the beast of the environment is like when you walk outside and that's all you see.
I got it.
You know, it is like, you know, that's why like treatment's like, the best part of treatment is taking yourself outside of your environment for a period of time. That is probably the best thing that treatment provides.
I couldn't get clean in Baltimore. I had to come out of here.
Yeah. Like, you know, all the groups and the therapy, like, yeah, all that shit helps. But the best thing that we get by going to treatment is that period of being away from that last use, you know? And so doing that show, like, it automatically, you know, so when I did that show, like, and it wasn't like, and if you ever watch a show, it's usually like, you know, they file 2 stories for 1 episode. So the one I was on, it was a 6-part docuseries.
Because Kensington's that fucked up.
Yeah, you know, and you know, and a lot of us that were on the show, some, you know, not a lot of us stayed clean, and I was one of the ones that stayed clean, and you know, and I found my niche too. I found like being able to network and talk to people and put myself out there. And so, you know, the part I played was like, I allow myself to be put out there, you know? So, but then like once I started going back to Philly and I started seeing how things were going, you know, and running into like some of my homies that I used with, and you know, and or them hitting me up on social media and be like, bro, keep doing what you're doing. Like, you're going to be able to open up a lot of doors for us, you know? So it was like that right there, like that pressure, like, damn, like, as long as I do this right, and as long as I do this perfectly, like, all those people that I love and care about, I can potentially be able to open up a door and a lane for them to get the same type of quality treatment that I was provided.
Which is a normal mindset for somebody who's, you know, got some step work under their belt, and, you know, but that mindset is usually not that of a newcomer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. And it shows, because like I wasn't prepared.
Like, early on, you're not ready to handle responsibility like that.
Yeah, and I definitely, like, I wasn't prepared. And that's the thing, like, you know, and like they don't set you up, they don't tell you about, you know, what comes after. You know what I mean? They don't tell you about how social media gets. They don't tell you about how you got vultures that'll come in and try and expose and use your story for their own financial benefit and gain. They don't talk about
that's what I'm
that
doing
stuff.
right now.
Yeah, well, it's different. Well, see, and that's something
you and I have been friends for
years.
Yeah,
it's like
joking.
Like, that's the thing, because the one thing, like that TV show, what it provided, so like I got to go to this treatment center, which totally changed my life. And from that treatment center, I wound up going to this sober living. And I remember going to sober living, and you know, and in the beginning I was scholarship, you know, so automatically my thought was like, I'm being scholarship for the simple fact that I was just on a TV show and they're going to be able to game. So I was like, all right, I'll take some free rent for that. And the girl I was with at that time, they scholarshiped her too. So I remember like when it was coming up to like when the scholarship period was done, and I go to the owner of the sober living. I'm like, hey, bro, like, hey, like, can you tell me ahead of time like what I need to do to prepare to like start paying rent and shit? You know, and he turns to me, he's like, look, homie, like, I'm the owner, and I'm gonna tell you this. Don't worry about any of your financial stuff. He's like, if I think you need to start worrying about it, he's like, I'll let you know. He's like, but don't worry about it. So of course, like my typical, my street thinking and prison thinking mind is like, oh, this dude's going to try and take advantage of me. You know, and then I had a conversation with one of the producers from the show, and, you know, and I was like kind of doing like a little follow up with her and talking about, hey, how, you know, I'm trying to figure out like what I'm going to do. Cause like, you know, I got blessed with a job working at a screen printing shop. Like while I was in treatment, you know, this guy became like a father figure to me. You know, he was basically finding work to give to me. When you were doing that. Yeah. And, you know, he was a guy that had over 30 years of recovery, you know, and, you know, so I go to the producer and I'm like, look, like, you know, I'm just trying to figure this stuff out. And they were like, so we've reached out to the owners of the sober living, and you know, we offered that, you know, we'll put the recovery homes on the credits, you know, and if that can take care of some of the financial part of your living. And, you know, knowing how them two guys were, I wasn't as surprised as I was about the other one when they turned it down. You know, and they said they didn't want any parts of it. They just want to see like me and her, like, see us have the ability for our lives to change. And like, and with that, that's awesome. With that one action, that finally built in, that finally gave me the spiritual principle of trust. You know, and that guy, of course, like, you know, if people watch the show, like he's done one of them. His name's Michael. You know, his name comes up in every episode. Yeah, you know, I mean, and it should, because like in this big ass community we have, like, you know, he's definitely fucking reached himself out there to help as many people. And like what happened with me and him is like, you know, like I'm just like him. You know, I love the hustle. I love building things. I love helping people. He's seen that ability in me. And he opened up a lot of doors for me as well. You know, because like coming into the sober living, you know, and it's now like I understand like some of my assets I have is like I'm a leader, you know, I'm intelligent, you know, I'm a fast thinker, you know, and he's seen those abilities in me, and you know, and he had me become a house manager, and I started managing the house, and that girl, she was managing another house, and you know, but like as couples, like when you get clean together, sometimes you guys grow apart. And that's exactly what happened. You realize the only thing you had in common was getting high anyway? Yeah. You know, and we had different goals. Generally the case. Yeah. And we definitely had different goals. And but it doesn't mean that so what happened with that situation was like, you know, when she came and approached me and told me like, hey, I'm with somebody else, like, you know what I mean? At the time, I was coming up on 11 months clean. You know, I was working steps. I was doing everything. But, you know, I haven't went through enough experiences yet to be able to deal with the situation. You weren't prepared. No, I definitely wasn't prepared. And, you know, and me and her, we got in this big-ass fight. And, you know, behind that, like, Michael had to step me down from being a house manager because I was wrong in my actions. You know, but like when Michael, that was another thing like this guy does, like, you know, but he didn't just like kick me out. Like he had me go stay on his couch, you know, and made it a point. Instead of the sober living. Yeah, because it took you into his own home. Yeah, because it was bigger than a sober living. You know, that relationship we were building, it was bigger than, because it is. Like our fellowships is bigger than any type of business. You know, and he made it a point to make sure that, like, look, man, like, I'm not giving up on you. Like, you can make mistakes, and I'm not giving up.
Right.
And then what happened right after that time is, like about a month later, about 2 weeks later, find out my sister died from an overdose in a recovery house in Philly. And, in the rooms they talk about finance and romance are the two things that take you out. And like, I had both of those. And then on top of it, like my sister dying,
loss,
and, and the powerlessness that came behind her death. And, I didn't get loaded, but what happened is like, I kept all those like things that I shouldn't have done. Like, I wouldn't talk to people. I didn't really express how I was feeling or what I was going through. And I disconnected myself. And, and then like about 10 months later, that same niece that stopped me that day, I find out that she was driving home from work and her car wrapped around a pole and she died. And people were telling me like, damn, if I was going through what you were going through, I would get loaded too. So for me, that was like the okay. And I went right back into it, and for a year I just ran, and
where
I
were you
just
at in
wanted to
the
die.
step work back then?
Back then, when I ran, I was on my 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
So definitely not mentally prepared for any
Not
kind
at
of
all.
loss, like on that level.
Not at all.
Shit.
Not at all. And the thing is, like, with going to sober living, like early on when I first came out, I met you. Me and you, we had the same sponsor, and we connected. And like,
you're a knucklehead.
Yeah, definitely. I would
Relate.
say so. Yeah, and and I built that friendship, and like friendships with other people. So like when I relapsed and I was out there using, like it stayed in the back of my mind that I am still loved. And
we were all fucking worried about you that entire year you were gone. Everybody was super fucking stoked to see you come back.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just...
You got people that definitely care.
Yeah, and like, even like, so we're coming back this time, like, like, again, Michael and Travis showed up and they were like, come on, like, come back. And still, even like now I'm at 7 months clean, and I still like, I still fall short, but like what I learned to do some things differently, like we got an amazing sponsor that, this guy just like really, he's a spiritual, that's like how I describe people, is he's a spiritual giant, and he stuck by me.
And he used to be a maniac.
Definitely a maniac, but like to see that change, and he don't give up, what I mean? As long as you keep doing the right thing. Like there's one thing he said to me that really affected me this time. Like when I went back and I was like, hey bro, like why didn't you like chase me like when I was in relapse mode and I was getting loaded? And he was like, because that's not my job. He's like, my job is to stay clean. So like if you are fortunate enough to make it back, you could see that this works. And like, so that guy just through that.
Chasing you isn't going to accomplish anything anyway.
No.
When you're in it, your mind's made up. We definitely reached out. Like, hey, man, fuck.
Oh, yeah. Shit, I even had my family reaching out to you when I was, and that's like we built, like, I mean, shit. My mom gets tattoos from you.
Yeah.
My mom sends your wife whatever kind of butter jelly that shit is. But it's cool.
What's that shit?
Oh,
apple butter.
Apple butter.
Yeah. Apparently they don't have it here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like one of them things. Like
Bill's mom will send you some.
Yeah, I'll tell her about it. And that's like one thing. Like after my sister passed, like my family don't use. They came to a realization that like this is a disease. And like having to know, like, not be mad at my sister. It's not like she wanted to die. She was just suffering from untreated disease of addiction, and we've tried like using her memory as a way to like be able to help other people. And, my whole family's involved with, you know, my siblings, because we're pretty
started
tight.
That like foundation and shit.
Yeah, started that, and you know, and just like being a part, like bro, like our community out here, like I've been fortunate to travel to a lot of places in the country and see communities, and like bro, we got this community that, you know, sometimes you sit back and you judge it and you're like, oh fuck this place, I don't. But the reality of it is, like, this community.
I did that early on. Yeah. I don't do that anymore. I'm fucking stoked to be part of it.
Like, it is, and it's dope, like, seeing people stay clean. And this community, like, we show up. You know what I mean? Like, one thing Michael always says, like, on recovery, you know, the opposite of addiction is connection. You know, and it's through that connection that we build a community, and through that community that we stay clean together. And it's fucking amazing. You know, like today, like, you know, I never thought, like, I would trust, like, another man to love me without condition. And I get that. You know what I mean? And it's fucking, it's insane and it's weird, but it fucking feels so good.
Awkward at first.
Yeah. Like, you know, like hugging. Like, I hated that shit. Don't hug me. You know? But, you know, and still, like, you know, and my drive.
Dude, I'll be perfectly honest. Like, you know, when another grown man's like, hey, bro, I love you. I didn't say it back till recently. You know, 4.5 years in, it was just like, that's kind of awkward.
But I think it's like kind of like.
My father never said that shit.
Yeah.
Fuck.
You know, but we come from this background where it's like you don't show emotion. You know, but the crazy thing is like, you know, we show emotion through our feelings, through our actions. You know what I mean? And like, bro, you would never have to tell me you love me for me to know that you love me, because like it's been unconditionally. Like you've never, like you've never expected to get anything out of me through our friendship, and vice versa. Now, luckily, I benefit because I get dope ass tattoos, you know. But you know what I mean. But like,
so you just admitted you're using me.
Well,
it's awesome.
No, but you know, but
love you too.
Yeah. But it's not. That's not what it's based on. It's based on like, bro, seeing your journeys like inspires me. Like I was around when you were slinging tattoos. I don't want to say because it was illegal. You know, and when
right. We joke about it all the time. I was tattooing people for food stamp cards because I didn't have a clientele to get money from.
And you had 3 teeth in your mouth, and you know, and
I got a bunch of cool stuff, but most importantly, I got peace of mind.
And
that's where I'm hoping you'll end up, because we don't want to fucking see you go back to fucking Kensington.
Yeah, you know, and I do. The crazy thing is, like, man, like that camaraderie that I have down there, and the guys, like, you know, and it's one of them things. Like, I know I can't save people. Like, that's not my work to save people. But like, my drive and motivation is to still be able to get into a situation where I can open up doors for people to be able to get the type of fucking community and family and the sense of like, you know, things are going to be okay. Because it's crazy being out there this last time, man, like seeing people get shot in the face, seeing people get friggin' overdosing and dying, like it became the norm again. Like it was normal seeing somebody get shot in the face and their eye fly across the street. And it's like, all right, well, hurry up and get this shit out of the way. I got to go get a bag of dope. You're getting in my way.
Step over.
You know, we're fucking seeing crazy thing, seeing somebody OD and watching everybody run their pockets.
If you want to fucking, you know, help other people get out of there, I always say you got to build your own house before you can offer somebody a couch to sleep on. Rock those fucking steps out.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's been the difference this time too, is like, you know, we took this approach to where, you know, in our fellowship, we talk about these spiritual principles, and we're both the sponsorship family we're in. And, you know, and our focus, of course, is to do the step work, but to learn how to apply these like spiritual principles into our life, you know, and it's crazy how it works, you know, and it's like, and we got some really, really dope predecessors, you know, some of the guys you've already had on the show, you know. And it's like being able to just have them around, like guys that are like-minded and been through the same shit and that are getting 20 plus years clean, and seeing that they did it, you know.
With fucking stories way crazier than anything we'd been through.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
But we're about out of time. I'm going to take a break from this anyway. Yeah. Fucking
appreciate it,
talk
man.
for an hour.
Dude.
Just about.
That's normal.
Yeah.
Do that shit a lot.
But anyway, thanks for doing this, Bill. And that concludes another episode of the Broken Crayon Show. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, comment, share. Help us spread the word so these voices can be heard. Peace.